In this video, I wanted to make a high-level basic demonstration of what DesignX does. So this is our demo part that we designed many years ago, and I realized I didn't have any videos that are showing our basic demo with our basic demo part. So I figured I would go ahead and make one right now. So as you see, this part right here is just floating out in space. It's not aligned to the world coordinate system. And if I zoom in and turn on the edges, you can see that this is a polygon scanned part from a 3D scanner. And as with many scans that come from scanners, they come in often Never Never Land. You know, they're floating out in space because the scanner itself is scanning in its own coordinate system, and the part is relative to the scanner's coordinate system. So it's necessary. I mean, you can reverse engineer this in position, but it'd be so much harder than if you just aligned it to the world coordinate system and then utilize the tools according to the CAD coordinate system to align that way. So to start off with, what I'm going to do is auto segment and create regions. The region group tool, as I always like to explain, is going through the scan and highlighting areas of common curvature, right? So triangles have an angle between them, and you can group triangles based on their curvature angle to their surrounding neighbors. And what we do here is just group them together, and the reason why it works this way is like these large flat areas will all get grouped as one region, and that one will get grouped as another region. It makes it very quick to go around and select faces, almost like you're selecting CAD faces. So this region grouping tool is really handy. Once you create these regions, you can see that we also classify them. So if I roll over, it says plane. So we try to figure out what it probably is and label it a specific kind of region. So the next step is to go ahead and align it, and to align it to the world coordinate system of this software, we use this interactive alignment tool. There are a whole host of ways to align parts to the world coordinate system, but the most simple way is to do what we call a 3-2-1 alignment, right? Where you can select a plane, and a plane. So if I'm going to select the top plane here, select the side plane as my vector, select this plane here, and I accidentally clicked on the side there. And then if I need to flip-flop my coordinate system, I can do so, or I can flip-flop the orientation. And you see it puts my coordinate system right there on the edge. I can put this anywhere. For example, I just did the 3-2-1. Let's say I want to do an XYZ. Let's put the origin there. And then if I want to set Y as this plane and Z as this plane, you'll see I just put the coordinate system right there. If I accept, it will put the origin there. So there's all different ways of going about this. And there's a whole host of ways of doing it, but I just like to show the basic 3-2-1. Now if I hit the home view, you'll see it takes me right to that home point. So it's a lot like assembling a part, you know, an assembly mode of CAD. Right out of the gate, one of the most important tools of DesignX is this ability to do a mesh sketch. So I can intersect this sketch. I can create a silhouette of the entire part, and it projects down at the intersection of the polygon down to that plane. I can set multiple sections and combine them together. I can do rotational silhouettes. I can limit it to just certain regions. There's all kinds of tools in there. But the main idea is DesignX gives you the ability to come in and draw things wherever you want to, just like a regular CAD, or you can best fit. So you see if I select those areas, that turquoise area is what I've selected, and it will best fit the sketch geometry to the data in the scan. Now obviously I don't want to create that, so if I just deselect it, I can accept that line. And I could design it this way by going around and just designing things in position that way and trimming them together. I could also just drag out a rectangle and snap it if I want to, that way. I can also run auto sketch and just tell the software, make everything for me, and I'll just throw away what I don't want. So I can come back and say, I really don't want to worry about those right now. I'll get them later. And it'll add the fillets for me as well. So if I do it that way, just use the auto sketch, turn on my mesh, I can now go ahead and grab that and extrude it. So I'm going to extrude it up and then down, and you can extrude all these different options. I can say up to region, up to a vertex. So if I said up to a vertex, I could just click on a specific vertex in there. Or I could say up to a region and then say max position. So if I select that region, it'll extrude up to the max distance of that, position. Or I could just do the old traditional blind and set it for whatever dimension that I want it to be right here, which is actually, honestly, what many people do. It's nice to have all those fancy options, but that helps to just extrude that way. So now you can see there's my solid block that I created. I could just cycle through and show and hide everything. So that's a manual cross section. You can model the whole part that way by using these manual cross sections. But after doing that for a long time, we decided to try to automate it more. So if I come over and go to the wizard section, I can actually create geometry with wizards as well. So if I come over to Extrusion Wizard, you can tell the software, I want to do an extrusion here, and these are the sides. I want to do a solid cut, and I'll just turn on my solid body there. I can say those are the sides, now do a cut, and then this is the bottom. Let's just select that bottom there. Turn on the solid again. Hit next. The software will automatically draw my sketch and give me a preview. And if I'm not happy with it, I can adjust the sliders and it will recalculate on the fly to make sure that I get something closer to what I might want. And then if I just hit the checkbox, you'll see that it goes ahead and it creates that extrusion as a cut and cuts it away from the solid body for me. So you can model this whole part this way with the wizards, but the wizards aren't just a one-time done deal. You can actually come back, and if I needed to change anything about that extrusion, I can come in and add dimensions, drag this. If I needed to change it in any way, I can do that, and it will update automatically for me. So you can edit those after the fact. You're not done when you run these wizards. Another one that's really handy is this loft wizard. So if I select that top surface, I can look at it from the top down here. And what this is like a bounding box that's going to dictate how the software like drapes a surface over top of that area for me. And I can constrain it to an actual plane, or I can visually do it this way. And I can dictate how many cross sections or what tolerance to tie it to. So I'll just start with like 6 cross sections there. And I can say what kind of sketches it uses. Hit next. And the software will automatically draw the cross sections and create a lofted surface for me. But it doesn't create it yet. It just kind of holds it in a preview mode. And that allows me to inspect it and make sure that the lofted surface is what I want it to be before I create it. So you'll see here, this is the lofted surface. Now, if those splines are not high enough resolution, I can come in and I can make these splines 10 noded splines or 15, and that adds resolution to the surface itself. While I'm in here, I can also turn on deviation and see a 3D comparison back to the original scan file. I can drag cross sections and move them around, and it will recalculate on the fly. And I can even hold control and it will add cross sections. So if there are areas that I want to follow closer to the mesh, I can do so, or I can just move them around and eliminate them if I needed to. So you can see here, adding cross sections using that deviation as a guide. Now when I hit OK, it'll go ahead and create that surface for me. And I'll turn on my solid and my surface. So there's my surface. And I could just come in and do like a regular surface cut. So I'll grab that surface, the body, what do I want to keep, and then there, and it will leave the tool behind for me. And so now in 3D, I can also do the same thing. At any point, I can turn on this deviation from body to see how closely I'm following that mesh and get feedback along the design process. Again, as I 3D model the part, I get feedback to know exactly how closely I'm following the mesh. So there is my deviation, and you can see areas that are following closer or less, and this is where you can make decisions as to how you want to model the part. It's clear the sides have draft to them, and I'm not modeling it with draft, so like I could always add draft in if I wanted to. It just depends on what you want to do, and you can make decisions along the way. So for all these other areas, it's more of the same. So I can come back here and say, I want to do a rotational wizard. And I'm going to tell it I want to do a solid merge. So I'll just hit next. It creates a sketch preview profile for me, and I can hit OK. And again, as usual, I can come over here and hit edit if I need to edit that sketch in any way. And then you'll see there's my surfaces and solids. I can come back and do the same thing. So rotation wizard. Obviously, most of the time when I'm going to model this in real life, I'll go ahead and manually model these things. But for this, it definitely shows how powerful the software is, and how if you're going to do lots of reverse engineering, the return on investment is very high, being able to model stuff this fast, and be able to quickly edit things, come in and make changes. Now for the sides, I always like to show a different method for modeling. So obviously I can model this the same exact way as I modeled the other areas, right? But what I like to do is come in and show how you can do wizards with surfaces as well. So I can come in and select the side and tell the software I want to do a surface insert, and then hit next. And you'll see that it will also do the same thing for surfaces. This is actually easier for the software to do, where I can have it model that as a CAD surface. And then the bottom, I can fit primitive surfaces. So if I come in and say I want to fit a plane to that area, not a cylinder, and I can just tell it to automatically extend. I usually extend surfaces, flat planes pretty far, because it's easy to extend those without deviation. So I fit those, and again, just like before, if I want to make any changes here, I can just go normal to that plane, and if I want to resize these and extend them, and then this one I want to make a change to it, I'm going to go ahead and remove that little fillet on the end and resize that to extend past the other surfaces that are there. Now if I get out of it and turn my surfaces on, you'll see those two surfaces that are there. So I can model it this way too. I can come over and say I want to do a surface trim, and I can just grab both of these surfaces and trim them to each other and create a surface body that's like a tool to trim away from a solid body. So now I can come over and do a cut with surface. And then I'll just say what side I want to keep. And for some reason I accidentally screwed that up, so I'm just going to go back. I'll delete that, and we'll delete that and start again. So if I come over and I say tool bodies, I want to select that as my tool body. This is my target, and hit next. There we go. That's what I want to keep, of course, and then hit OK. So of course it keeps my tool body afterwards if I need it, and I can just keep right on going around the model. Over here, this does, again, a really good job of just using the Extrusion Wizard. So I select those regions. Again, this is why regions are so great to use because they're so fast to be able to come over and select it and then say solid cut, next, extend past the top of the part, and then hit OK. And there it is. And then for that other one here, this is the one where I'll do the other way. Sometimes regions aren't what you want. Look at it created this whole region as one area. You can edit these regions very easily. I can just come back and I can swipe here and say I want that to be its own region, which inherently breaks up this region into multiple segments. Now, because that region wasn't what I wanted it to be, if I come back over to Extrusion Wizard and say those are the sides, this is the bottom, hit next, and I had it set as a solid merge. Let's do a cut because that's actually what I want to do. Again, that's nice to be able to catch it before it creates, right? I can tell it to go ahead and give me a preview, and then I can accept it, and it'll cut it away. So as usual, I've created the part as a solid model here and inside of Design X, but what many people want is a model inside of their CAD package, right? So what I'm going to do now is do what we call a live transfer. Live transfer will build my history tree that I've built here inside of Design X over inside of a CAD package. You see, these are the supported CAD packages that we work with. And again, it builds them over as native entities. So what I'm going to do is have SolidWorks open, and then I'll show the process of going inside of SolidWorks here in a second. So now that SolidWorks is open, I'll go ahead and send it across to SolidWorks. I'm going to go to Start from First Feature and show SolidWorks. And now it's going to go through line by line and build these items as native entities, like I said before. All the relations and constraints, sketches, dimensions, all those things get built inside of the CAD environment, to the point where, if I didn't tell people, many times they wouldn't even notice that this didn't come from SolidWorks. It just looks like somebody designed it directly inside of this work environment. Sometimes it is possible to take slightly different modeling approaches. If I have scan data and I'm using wizards, it might create the plane in a different spot, or maybe a SolidWorks user might create it then. So there are little differences in the way you model in here than where you would model inside of Design X. But for the most part, again, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So there are some things like the surfaces that it's creating right now. I extruded that surface, I created that flat plane surface. There are some things that sometimes don't come across. So you'll see here, if it does the surface trim, sometimes the trim does not work between the two. And that's exactly what happens. So we might trim surfaces slightly different than they do inside of SolidWorks. So the way this happens is it'll go ahead and pause right where it's at. And then in SolidWorks, especially like if you are using this live transfer tool, you're most likely a SolidWorks user, and you're going to be very familiar with how they do things over here. So you can model things in a certain way to where you would avoid having any sort of issues like this. But I like to show how the interface works because it's a very simple process to come in and say, I'm going to trim these myself together. And then I can do my own cut with surface right here. And you'll see how their interface does cut with surface a little bit different. And then when I'm done with that, I can turn it off. So I can make a change. Then I can toggle right over to Design X. And it pauses exactly where those two things happen. And I can just fast forward past those two things, come back into Live Transfer and say resume from the selected entities, and then jump back over to SolidWorks and just have it pick right up where it left off. In this instance, I'm sending everything over at once, but you don't have to design that way. If you wanted to just extract a bunch of sketches and do all the modeling inside of SolidWorks, you could do that, where I just extract things inside of Design X, send them over in one big data dump, and then do all your modeling in here. It would be very easy to do so. So now, again, once all this stuff is done, I can just click on that. You'll see that here's the extrude cut. Just edit sketch, go normal too. So if I make a change here, just make some crazy change. I don't want to go that crazy. Let's just move this here. There. And then accept it. You'll see that it rebuilds. There you go. So that is an overview of the Geomagic Design X and live transfer over to SolidWorks. That's my basic demonstration of how that tool works. I hope this is helpful and educational for anyone out there that's looking into finding out how DesignX works and what its intentions are and how easy it is to use. Thanks a lot for your time.